"You did this to yourself," my mom hissed, her voice sharp with frustration as she roughly smeared aloe vera onto my blistered hands. The sting of the gel against my raw, scorched skin made me wince, but I bit my lip hard, fighting back the tears that threatened to spill. The pain wasn't just physical, it carried the weight of betrayal, of a family secret I was expected to bury. "If you hadn't stolen Amber's role, none of this would have happened," she continued, her words slicing through me like a knife. I sat silently at our pristine kitchen table, the cold fluorescent lights of the basement theater from the night before still haunting my memory. Those lights had exposed every agonizing detail of my injury to the theater director, Miss Carter. Now, 12 hours later, my mother was frantically weaving a narrative to preserve our family's flawless facade, a carefully curated image that hid the chaos beneath. My name is Sophia Martinez, and at 17, I had just secured the lead role of Christine in our school's production of The Phantom of the Opera. It was supposed to be the pinnacle of my young life, a moment of triumph after years of living in my sister's shadow. Instead, I was staring at my hands, watching my skin bubble and peel from a horrific accident, or so my family called it, caused by Amber's curling iron. The burns weren't just painful, they were a deliberate mark of her resentment, a punishment for daring to step into the spotlight she'd claimed as her own. Amber stood in the kitchen doorway, her perfectly styled hair framing a face devoid of remorse. Her eyes gleamed with a cold satisfaction as she spoke. "I told you to drop out, Sophia." "You never listen," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. Amber had always been the star, the golden child who could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. For years, I'd lingered in the background, managing tech and props while she basked in the applause on center stage. But when Miss Carter announced open auditions for Christine, something inside me snapped. I was tired of shrinking, tired of letting Amber's light dim my own. So I auditioned and I won. Now, as I sat with my throbbing hands, I realized the cost of that victory. "The burns will heal," my mom said, her tone brisk as she wrapped gauze around my palms, trying to conceal the evidence. "We'll get you special makeup. No one needs to know about this. Family matter. Family matter." That's what everything was in our house, a carefully labeled excuse for Amber's cruelty. The time she pushed me down the stairs for getting a better grade? Family matter. When she accidentally deleted my college application videos, erasing months of hard work. Family matter. And now this, her pressing a scorching curling iron against my palms while I slept, a calculated act to force me out of the play, was just another secret to sweep under the rug. Why Dad walked into the kitchen, still in his hospital scrubs from his night shift. As the city's most respected pediatrician, he was a master at saving face, at turning a blind eye to the dysfunction in his own home. "Sophia," he sighed, examining my hands with the detached precision of a clinician. "These need proper medical attention." His words held a flicker of concern, but my mom cut him off sharply. "No hospitals," she snapped, her voice laced with panic. "We have everything we need here. Besides, rehearsals start tomorrow. She needs to be ready." I stared at my father, silently pleading for him to intervene, to see me, not just the burns, but the years of pain I'd endured. For a fleeting moment, I thought I saw something in his eyes: concern, maybe even guilt. But then Amber spoke, her voice saccharine yet venomous. "Daddy, Sophia's just being dramatic. She's trying to ruin my senior year because she's jealous. I've played the lead in every production since freshman year. This was supposed to be my moment." My dad's face hardened, and just like that, the flicker of care vanished. "Your mother's right," he said, his tone final. "We'll treat this at home. Sophia, you need to think about how your actions affect others." My actions. Of course. Somehow, this was my fault. That night, I lay in bed, my hands throbbing despite the pain medication my dad had given me, which barely dulled the agony. Through the thin wall, I could hear Amber practicing her vocals, each perfect note a cruel reminder of the role she'd lost and the pain she'd inflicted to reclaim it. The sound felt like another burn, searing into my soul. Morning brought new challenges. My mom spent an hour painstakingly applying specialized makeup to my hands, muttering curses every time the gauze peeked through. "Remember," she warned, her eyes narrowing, "if anyone asks, you were practicing curling techniques for the show. It was an accident." Her words were a command, not a suggestion, another layer of the lie we were all expected to uphold. At school, I felt like I was sleepwalking through a nightmare. The makeup on my hands was thick and uncomfortable, making it nearly impossible to move my fingers without cracking the carefully constructed cover. During classes, I kept my hands hidden under the desk, praying no one would notice the truth beneath the facade. Then came theater rehearsal, the one place where I'd hoped to find solace. Miss Carter had scheduled costume fittings first, and as the costume designer helped me into Christine's elaborate dress, I tried desperately to keep my hands out of sight. But fate had other plans. "Sophia, could you lift your arms for the measurements?" Miss Carter asked, her clipboard in hand. As I raised my arms, the sleeve of my costume slipped, and the harsh stage lights revealed what the makeup couldn't hide: angry red burns wrapping around both palms, the distinct pattern of the curling iron's barrel etched into my skin. The costume designer gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Miss Carter moved closer, her eyes narrowing as she took in the deliberate nature of the injuries. "Everyone out," she commanded, her voice cutting through the chatter of the other students. "Sophia, stay here." My heart pounded as the theater emptied. Amber lingered by the door, her face a twisted mix of threat and fear, but Miss Carter's stern glare sent her scurrying away. Once we were alone, Miss Carter's voice softened, but it carried an unshakable resolve. "Show me your hands," she said quietly. I hesitated, then held them out. The practice lay bitter on my tongue. "It was an accident," I recited. I was curling my hair. "Sophia," she said, her tone gentle but firm, "I've been teaching theater for 20 years. I know what curling iron burns look like. No accident causes symmetrical burns on both palms." Tears welled up in my eyes as she carefully held my wrists, examining the damage with a tenderness my own parents hadn't shown. "Your sister did this, didn't she?" she asked, her question hanging in the air like the final note of a tragic aria. I couldn't speak, but my silence was answer enough. "And your parents?" she pressed. "They said it's a family matter," I whispered, my voice breaking. Miss Carter's face darkened with a mix of anger and determination. She pulled out her phone, scrolling through contacts with a fierce precision. "What are you doing?" I asked, panic rising in my throat. "Making a call that should have been made long ago," she replied, her eyes blazing with fierce protection. "Some matters are too big for families to handle alone." As she dialed, I caught a glimpse of Amber watching through the theater door's window, her perfect facade finally cracking with fear. The next morning, 2 Child Protective Services investigators arrived at our house, their government-issued car pulling into our perfectly manicured driveway, shattering the illusion of suburban tranquility we'd maintained for years. My mom was in the kitchen, frantically scrubbing already spotless counters as if she could clean away the truth. Amber sat at the breakfast bar, her face pale beneath her carefully applied makeup. My dad, conveniently, had already left for his hospital shift, avoiding the storm that was about to unfold. "Sophia," my mom hissed up the stairs, her voice trembling with barely concealed panic. "Come down here right now and put on your gloves." But it was too late. Miss Carter had taken photos of my hands the day before, clear, undeniable evidence of what had been done to me. The investigators, a stern-looking woman named Mrs. Bennett and her younger colleague, Mr. Torres, were already seated in our living room when I came downstairs. "Mrs. Martinez," Mrs. Bennett began, her voice professional but unyielding, "we've received a report concerning serious injuries to Sophia's hands. We'd like to speak with her privately." My mom's perfectly maintained smile faltered. "This is ridiculous," she stammered. "It was a simple accident. Girls experiment with hairstyling all the time." Mr. Torres met my eyes, his gaze kind but resolute. "Then you won't mind if we speak with Sophia alone," he said. They led me to the study, closing the door on my mom's protests. For the next hour, I poured out everything, not just the burns, but the years of Amber's escalating cruelty and my parents' relentless cover-ups. My hands shook as I recounted the curling iron incident, Waking up to searing pain, Amber standing over me, her voice cold as she warned me to drop out of the play. "Your drama teacher mentioned previous incidents," Mrs. Bennet said gently. "Can you tell us about those?" So I did. The time Amber pushed me down the stairs for outshining her academically. The accidental deletion of my college application videos. The lost acceptance letter to a prestigious summer theater program, mysteriously misplaced after Amber's jealousy flared. With each revelation, I felt lighter, as if speaking the truth was finally breaking the spell of silence that had bound our family for years. Meanwhile, my mom's voice rose in the living room as she faced questions from other officials who had arrived. Amber's sobs echoed through the house, not tears of remorse, but of fury at being exposed. "I want to press charges," I said finally, my voice stronger than I'd expected. "Not just for this, but for everything." Mrs. Bennet nodded, making notes in her file. "Given the severity and pattern of abuse and your age, that's your right," she said. "We'll need to document your injuries properly at the hospital." Just then, the study door burst open. My dad stood there, still in his scrubs, having rushed home from work. His face was a storm of emotions, anger, fear, and something new, shame. "This is a misunderstanding," he began, his doctor's authority coding each word. But Mr. Torres cut him off. "As a medical professional, you should be especially concerned about these injuries," he said sharply. "The pattern suggests deliberate harm, Dr. Martinez, and your failure to seek proper medical treatment could be considered negligent." My dad's face went pale, his carefully constructed world of respectability crumbling before his eyes. "Sophia," he pleaded, his voice cracking, "think about your sister's future, her college applications." I stood up, holding out my bandaged hands, my resolve unwavering. "What about my future?" I asked, my voice steady despite the tears stinging my eyes. "What about all the futures you've let her steal from me while you looked the other way?" The room fell silent. In that moment, I saw my father for who he truly was, not the respected doctor, not the distant parent, but a man who had failed his youngest daughter in every way that mattered. Mrs. Bennet stepped between us, her voice calm but authoritative. "Dr. Martinez, given your position at the Children's Hospital, we'll need to conduct a thorough investigation. Your medical license could be affected by this." My dad staggered back as if struck, his reputation, the thing he valued most, now at risk. From downstairs came the sound of breaking glass, followed by Amber's scream of rage. My mom's placating voice rose above the chaos, still trying to control a situation that had spiraled far beyond her grasp. "I'd like to go to the hospital now," I said quietly, turning to Mrs. Bennet. "And then I want to call Miss Carter. She should know what's happening." As they led me out of the study, I passed Amber on the stairs. Her perfect mask had shattered completely, revealing the ugliness beneath. "You're ruining everything," she snarled. "I hate you." For the first time, her words didn't hurt. They were simply proof that I'd finally found the courage to end this cycle of abuse. In the CPS car, driving away from the house that had been my prison for so long, I looked down at my phone. A message from Miss Carter glowed on the screen. "You're stronger than you know. We're all here for you." I closed my eyes, letting tears fall freely. Tomorrow would bring police statements, hospital examinations, and difficult conversations. But for now, I felt only relief. The curtain had finally fallen on my family's performance of perfection, and though the ending wasn't happy, it was real. And real was exactly what I needed. 6 months later, I stood on the stage of our school theater, the spotlight warm on my face as I sang the final notes of Think of Me from the Phantom of the Opera. The audience erupted in applause, their cheers washing over me like a wave of validation. Through the bright lights, I saw Miss Carter in the front row, wiping tears from her eyes, her pride evident in her smile. My hands, now healed, bore only faint scars, a quiet testament to my survival. The makeup I wore tonight was for the character of Christine, not to hide the evidence of abuse. The changes in my life had been swift and profound. Amber had been arrested and charged with assault. Given her age and my parents' influence, she'd been offered a plea deal, mandatory psychiatric treatment, community service, and a restraining order keeping her at least 500 feet away from me. She was now living with our aunt in another state, attending therapy 3 times a week to confront the root of her destructive behavior. My parents faced their own consequences. My dad's medical license was suspended pending a review, and both he and my mom were charged with child endangerment. The investigation uncovered a pattern of enabling Amber's behavior that stretched back years, forcing them to attend counseling and parenting classes to confront their failures. As for me, I moved in with my grandmother, Elena, who had been kept in the dark about the turmoil in our home. When she learned the truth, she became my fiercest protector, her love a balm for the wounds my family had inflicted. Mija, she'd said the day I moved in, her voice warm with conviction, in this house, you will shine as bright as you want. And shine I did. Without Amber's shadow looming over me, I discovered a strength I never knew I had. My voice grew bolder, both on stage and in life. I joined the student council, started a support group for students dealing with family abuse, and maintained my place on the honor roll. The theater became my sanctuary, a place where I could be unapologetically myself. Miss Carter wasn't just a director, she became a mentor, guiding me through college applications and writing glowing recommendation letters for theater programs across the country. After the final curtain call of The Phantom of the Opera, I was surrounded by my new support system. My grandmother hugged me tightly, whispering words of pride in Spanish. My best friend Sarah, who had been the first person I confided in about the abuse, handed me a bouquet of roses, her eyes shining with joy. Even Mrs. Bennett from CPS had come to watch, a quiet nod of approval on her face. Sophia, Miss Carter called, weaving through the crowd. Someone here wants to meet you. Behind her stood a woman in a crisp suit, the dean of the theater department from the state university. That was quite a performance, she said, handing me her card with a warm smile. We'd love to have you audition for our program. Full scholarship. My hands trembled as I took the card, but this time, it was from joy, not fear. The possibility of a future in theater, one I'd earned through my own talent and resilience, felt like a dream coming true. Later that night, at the small celebration party my grandmother hosted, I checked my phone and found a text from my mom. We saw the video of your performance, it read. You were beautiful. We're sorry for everything. When you're ready, we'd like to talk. I showed the message to my grandmother, who squeezed my shoulder gently. The choice is yours, Mija, she said. Your healing happens on your timeline, not theirs. She was right. I wasn't ready to forgive, not yet, but I was ready to move forward. The future stretched before me like an open stage, brimming with possibilities. Sarah appeared at my side, grinning mischievously. Ready for the best part of the evening, she asked, leading me to my grandmother's garden, where my theater friends had gathered. They'd prepared a surprise, a montage of photos and videos from the past 6 months, chronicling my journey from those dark days to this moment of triumph. There I was at rehearsals, laughing with the cast, leading a student council meeting, speaking at a community event about standing up against family abuse. You helped us too, Sarah said softly. By being brave enough to speak up, you showed others they could do the same. 2 other students at our school had come forward about their own family situations since my story became known, inspired by my courage to break the silence. The support group I'd started now held regular meetings, offering a safe space for others to share their experiences. Miss Carter had implemented a new policy in the theater department, training staff to recognize and report signs of abuse, ensuring no one else would suffer in silence as I had. As the montage ended with footage of tonight's performance, I realized something profound. The real performance had been my old life, pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. Now, standing in my grandmother's garden, surrounded by people who truly cared about me, I was finally living authentically. Someone called out for a speech, and I looked around at these faces, my chosen family, and felt a swell of gratitude. 6 months ago, I thought my life was over. I began, my voice steady and clear. But it was actually just beginning. Sometimes, the hardest role to play is yourself, but it's the only one that matters. The night ended with songs around my grandmother's piano, laughter filling the air, and plans for the future taking shape. As I fell asleep that night, my script for tomorrow's college audition resting on my bedside table, I thought about how far I'd come. The curtain had risen on my new life, and I was ready to take center stage. Please feel free to comment below if you liked this. Remember to like and subscribers for more.